What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Entertainment Plaza Reviews. Today we are reviewing She-Hulk Attorney at Law, and you are watching on twitch.tv/the Entertainment Plaza. Later, after the podcast, you can watch it on youtube.com/the Entertainment Plaza and on podcast services around the world. That's Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, you name it, we'll be on there. So again, we are reviewing She-Hulk Attorney at Law, but I have a special guest today. And honestly, I'm so happy. I can almost cry. Like, you don't understand. This guy, they know him as the Sheik of Geek. This guy has been running Geek Warz on Facebook and Instagram for what seems like decades. I get most of my geek information from him. And I've started collecting comic books because of him. So, I introduce the Sheik of Geek, my cousin Rico. What's going on, Rico?
All right, welcome, Geek Warriors. Once again, you know that we are going to be here live on Twitch, apparently, which is something new to me because I'm not the techie type guy, which is why half of my stuff's on like paper, not paper really, but it's on digital. But my man Mo is the man with the plan, so he invited me. And what's your Sheik of Geek going to do but not show up, right? So here we are. I look like I'm reporting live in some bat cave or something, but in memory of, in honor of the present Twitch thing and what we're doing tonight, I'm all green.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Go
sir.
figure.
It looks like you're in the inside of the Hawk. I'll stop.
I don't know.
We'll leave it right there.
I wasn't sure about ratings and which Hulk you're talking about because that could leave it. Yeah, that could be a bad thing.
Yeah, man. But look, before we get started, is there anything you want to plug? I know you got your blog, you got your social media. Throw it out there right now.
Anyone who knows me knows that I've been carrying Geek Warz on my back for, I don't know. I mean,
a long time.
It got to be 8-9 years. I can't remember off the top of my head. It started off on Facebook as a page. I put it on Instagram. So if you like all kind of geek, memorabilia, vintage things have to do with comics, things have to do with, recently especially, action figures, toys, video games, pop culture. Your boy Rico is here, okay? That's right. And that's Geek Warz, WARZ, like zebra. So if you check it out on Facebook, check it out on, anything else. Is MySpace a thing? I don't even know.
Mi Gente.
Bear Chair.
I think I saw you on Mi Gente the other day, so I'm pretty sure that's on there.
I think, I don't know. I'm trying to get on Spotify. I don't know. I'm trying to get on, I know, Christian Mingle. I don't know.
I mean,
whatever gets me out there.
Farmers only, whatever. You know what I mean? Whatever gets your name out there.
If it's MySpace, Facebook, I don't know, whatever it is, I'm going to try to get on it. But here we are.
Yeah, man. So again, I appreciate you coming on. We used to have our podcast back in the day with Dennis and Ricky.
Yes,
man, do I miss having that podcast with you guys.
The most random bits of information possible.
Yeah, it was 3 of us. It was 4 of us.
Guys possible.
Oh my goodness, tell me about it. It was, it was definitely random. It was 4 of us on there. We could never understand Ricky, what he was saying, but
he was usually eating something. But
that's
whatever.
true. That's true. But we might have to do a reunion of sorts at some point or another.
Technology allows it. We'll figure it out. Maybe we can find out where in Florida, Loverboy Dennis went. So we'll see.
But anyways, enough about that. We are going to review She-Hulk Attorney at Law. I guess we'll start with episode number 1. It was titled A Normal Amount of Rage. Let's start with you. What did you feel? How did you feel about episode 1 of She-Hulk Attorney at Law?
I'll say it this way. Let's start by first talking about the actress who started out, Tatiana Maslany. For those of you who are not familiar with her work, I've been trying to tell people about her work on Orphan Black for years. That was a series that was on BBC, I believe it was, for years, and gangbusters. Her work there was very, very well received. It was really good, really unique premise. So right out the gate, I knew that it was going to be a little unique, and it had to be something good if she was going to be in it, right? Taking it back also, I always thought that and by the way, can we just say spoiler alert up front in case somebody,
spoiler alert, anybody, if you're listening to this right now, we will be talking about all kind of spoilers, so make sure you go watch the first 2 episodes of She-Hulk Attorney at Law. They're only about 20-30 minutes, which is great, but they're packing a lot of stuff in these 20 minutes of a show, which is remarkable. So again, spoiler alert from here on out. just come back
I was
and
just about to get into some things, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, if you didn't see this, you're about to get mad.
Yeah.
If you don't want to be spoiled,
and hawk
right?
up probably. So we don't want that.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Now, if I can just say it this way, like for example, I was talking to you earlier off camera. We were talking about how lately I approach things with a 3 things I like, 3 things I don't like type of format. So it kind of helps me keep my brain organized and basically go through there. Let me just tell you this much. If you've seen what happened this week, well, last week, I should say, for the very first show, the way she became She-Hulk, I didn't like.
Okay.
And here's why. Because if you know anything about the somewhat history of She-Hulk, she got a crazy accident. She had a blood transfusion from her cousin, Bruce Banner, and hence and forth, you can probably guess what happens after that. But in this one, they got in a car accident by actually almost running into a Sakaar alien spaceship from, if you call Ragnarok, Sakaar is where he was there for 2 years, right? Which is part 2 of what I don't like about it, because it just disappeared and we didn't see anything for it the whole rest of the episode. So
until episode 2.
Not about
Until episode 2.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So they kind of made up for it. But they both were kind of like a little bloody mess because they weren't in Hulk form, obviously. So it just felt like she bled. He bled. He happened to be above her. It dripped on her arm. And, gee, watch out. Don't let that happen. That's not how blood transfusions work, bro.
Right.
I mean, I don't even play a doctor on TV, but that kind of bothered me.
But you do in real life, so.
Well, I mean, if you're thinking about, okay, these are scientists, by the way. Bruce Banner's a scientist.
That is very true. Yes.
Even he knows. Just because I drip from here to there doesn't mean that. You're automatically contaminated, and especially not to the effect of gamma radiation, which would infuse itself to probably every pore of your body there, to become another Hulk, to make it even worthwhile to make a story. That's something I didn't like.
Right.
So talk to me about something you liked or didn't like about it.
One of my notes. So I like to take notes on things when I'm watching them, because my memory has gone by the wayside. The older I get, the less I remember. Specifically in episode 1, when she has already become She-Hulk. I didn't mind the way she became She-Hulk, because I don't know the history of the comic books. Now, you've read probably every comic book known to man, so you can definitely speak to that a little bit better than I can. I didn't know that's how she became She-Hulk in the comics, with the blood transfusion and all that. It is a 20-minute show, so how much can you really show as far as and it's a very low budgeted show apparently, because I mean, look at the CG, but we'll go into that later. That's one of the things I didn't like. The CG, although it looked a little better than it did in the trailer, I still think she looked kind of weird in it. Bruce Banner as the Hulk looked okay, but they've been working on Bruce Banner for a decade now, if not more. So I can see how he looks a little bit better than she does. But one thing I didn't like was when Bruce and Hulk was Bruce and She-Hulk was talking in Mexico, I believe it was, and it was like this weird background music. It was almost like distracting while they were talking. It was like super loud, and he was like trying to like tell her, you don't know what you're doing, and you need to listen to me, you need to stay here, and they're like kind of bickering back and forth. I was super distracted by that background music. Now, luckily it was only about 5 minutes of that. You know what I mean? But that is one thing that was like, what the heck is going on here? I didn't like it. And that was when he was explaining to what's her name? Yes. When he was explaining to her what had happened. Yeah, to Jennifer. So
Jenny from the Hulk.
Yeah.
I coined that, by the way, trademark. If anybody wants that,
Jenny from the Hulk.
Trademark. In case they make a T-shirt, just saying.
Now I will say, in all, I really did like She-Hulk. Like the first episode, the second episode, I'm really loving the humor that the show has. At first, I wasn't sure how I felt about her breaking the fourth wall. I didn't know that was a thing. The only person that everybody knows breaks the fourth wall is Deadpool. And I'm like, all right, so she broke the fourth wall literally within the first 3 minutes of the first episode, and she's like, "Well, let me tell you how this all happened," and then we go on to the car crash and all that and the spaceship, and I was like, "Wow, she really broke the fourth wall." I'm not sure how I feel about this, so I do a little bit of research, and apparently she does that in the comics, and you can correct me on that, but apparently she really does.
I believe she does.
Yes, she breaks the fourth wall, and then I kind of started like, all right, I kind of like this, when she breaks the fourth wall, especially with some of the jokes she does. So, those are
To be fair, I was just going to say something that I went in with this with next to no expectations.
Same here.
And the reason why is because, and again, because if you read any of the comics or if you know anything about the character of the She-Hulk, she's totally different than Hulk. She's like where Hulk is very dramatic, and pretty much like always worried about losing control. She always embraced it in the comics. Like she was flamboyant about it. I think at one point she was a model. Like she, she actually would literally go into court all hulked out on purpose because she was like, I got it. I got control. I can change any time, but no one noticed me before, so I might as well be glammed out.
Yeah.
So I was fully prepared for this to be a campy, like, okay, this is going to be a scruffy, scrappy little girl type story, like girl power. So for lack of a better way of saying it, to go kind of hand in hand because the last show we got was Ms. Marvel.
Yes.
So that was kind of like good for females and empowerment and whole thing about that and really sassiness and all that jazz. Not to sound kind of weird. I hope I don't sound weird by saying it that way. But, but I was going at fully expecting it to be campy and to be like almost like the Adam West Batman situation. Like, there's some things going on, superhero-y stuff going on, but we're not taking ourselves that serious.
Well, that's another thing that I like was the whole girl power scene in the restroom at the bar where I was like, dude, it was so hilarious, but you can see like, she's all jacked up in there, she's like,
we gotta stick together, girl.
Yeah, you gotta stick together. I loved it. You know what I mean? Because I can see that actually happen in real life when, you see a girl in there, looks beat up, and then these 3 or 4 girls came in, no questions, no judgment. And it was like, I got you, girl. Here, let me help you out. Put some mascara or whatever. I was like, yo, that was dope. So, it's a lot.
That was definitely interesting. I mean, I definitely thought the whole little montage of her training with Bruce was kind of a little. I wasn't sure how I felt about it because I'm like, I felt bad for Bruce because he's just trying to be serious. Like, look, I'm trying to help you, and she's like, I got this. This ain't nothing. Let me throw this rock further than you. I don't care. Let me do this yoga, do this other stuff. I
didn't mind the montage. What I didn't like about the montage was when they started fighting after the fact. That was to me that was a bit much. Like they were. I get it. They're cousins, but they feel more like brother and sister. And again bickering and the montage thing where he's trying to show her off and she's trying to show him off with balancing and throwing the stones and then he throws something into orbit, one of the boulders into orbit.
If he probably knocked out a spaceship out there for all we know.
Seriously. But I did like the montage, except the whole fighting thing was a bit much. It was like, all right, come on, we get it. Like you guys are both Hawks and stuff like that. But
the way I looked at it was okay. Just like every first episode of any series, right? It's designed if it's done correctly to lay the groundwork, right? Mm-hmm. So I kind of tempered my expectations based on that.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking. Okay, well, I fully just sat there and watched it and nodded and okay, we'll see where this goes.
Yeah.
Which leads to the second one, which there's probably more to say about.
I went in. I wouldn't say I went in with low expectations. I went in with no expectations. The only thing I remember not liking from the trailers again is the CG. It looked bad. It wasn't great CG as far.
Fuzzy.
It just looked. I don't know, even like, I know hair is hard to do when it comes to animation, and CG. I know hair from, all the podcasts I listen to and all the articles I read. That's one of the hardest things to do, and they didn't necessarily master it with her either, and it kind of looked almost plastered on, So, I don't know how to explain it. Yeah, but...
Well, it's kind of like I think they learned a little bit of their lesson from the whole Sonic the Hedgehog fiasco from a year or so ago.
Yes.
Year or two ago, whatever it's been, when they were like, okay, well, this looks terrible. Let's dot it up. I think it looked a little better than the previews.
Yeah.
Which is probably, like anything else, they just rushed something out there and said, okay, this is the rough draft. We'll clean it up a little bit before we air it. But,
I agree. It did look better after the the trailers after the fact. They probably went in and kind of polished a few things here and there. But moving on with the first episode, obviously, she turns into the Hawk. She is able, which another thing I like, to control it, which Bruce Banner cannot. She can turn into Jen Walters
I was
anytime.
wondering what the deal is with that. You know what I mean? Because I don't know. I don't know if it's just because of the fact that there's so much trauma related to how Bruce got his as opposed to hers. Yeah. She got it and she just readily accepted it.
Yeah. Well, she also says, I can control my anger. I'm a woman. I get catcalled every day. I get told that I can't do the job a man can do. I get, everything that she goes through on a daily basis. She has to kind of internalize that, not get angry, kind of let it go. And she's like, at least that's what she made it seem like. I can control my anger because of, my everyday life, that I have to do that on my everyday life anyway. So that's why I'm able to control my anger from going from She-Hulk back to Jen Walters, So that was one of the things. That's her explanation as to why she can control, She-Hulk in that way.
I get that.
Yeah. So
I mean, I was thinking another version of what I liked, or something just to point out, I think was interesting. It really was interesting to me how he pointed out, him being Bruce Banner, the time he spent with Tony Stark.
Yes.
Building the Hulk bunker, if you want to call it that. Also building the bar.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They scratched their initials into the bar. It was kind of one of those little homages. It's going to be forever. I think probably in the next couple years, all you're going to see is little Easter eggs of people paying homage to Tony Stark and all these new iterations of movies. Just because of the impact he had and all the movies and every iteration of it.
Yeah, he even had the helmet, one of Iron Man's helmets, in the bunker there. So I thought that was
pretty sure
cool.
that looked like one of the original ones that Ultron had before he turned bad, like the Sentries.
Oh, okay.
That's what it looked like, and I'm not sure if that's the one they smashed or not.
Gotcha.
I mean, if you're actually looking at Easter eggs for that one, I believe in that bungalow, whatever you want to call it, that in Mexico, his house, there also was a helmet that looked exactly like the one in the background that when he was on Sakaar, like the Gladiator.
Hogan,
Hulk.
Yeah.
I said Hulk Hogan. Hulk, you know what I mean? The Incredible Hulk. So there was actually one in there. So I don't know if that was actually the exact one or it was one it just happened to be one in the background. But I noticed it very much looked like that.
Yeah, I didn't notice that one. I did notice, the helmet, because they kind of made it a point to, show the audience that, that helmet was there. The bar, they ended up breaking it during the fight, and they rebuilt it, before she leaves back to the real world. But so at the end of this one, again, I'd like to move on to the second episode, but I would say I really did like it. I was pleasantly surprised with the show. Probably, and as so far with the first two episodes, I would say is one of my favorite, shows on Disney Plus. Miss Marvel was good.
Oh.
It was good. WandaVision was really good. Hawkeye, I didn't really care for too much. What are the other ones? What If? I actually really loved What If. That's probably...
What If was amazing.
I really love... That's probably my favorite. That was one of my... I was like...
There's rumor of a season 2 for that.
Yeah,
so
definitely a season 2. Actually, from what I've read, they've had like 3 or 4 episodes that they decided not to put into season 1 that are already done for season 2. So... but yeah, I would say this is probably one of my favorite ones. Yeah, Moon Knight was okay. That was one that was just like...
It's trippy, though.
It was trippy. I love the actor. I can't remember his name.
You have to have an acquired taste to really I don't know a little bit about it, but also kind of be open enough to be kind of messed up a little bit.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Not being new to comics, the comic books have opened my eyes to the shows more. So it's like I'm enjoying the shows way more than I probably would have been if it wasn't that I'm reading comics. Like right now I'm reading Moon Knight Red, White, and Blood, which is... or Black, White, and Blood. It's actually really good. And yeah, he's a freaking nut. Like the show doesn't do Moon Knight no justice because he's freaking crazy. You know what I mean? So,
basically a Batman wore white and didn't have a leash.
Pretty much, yeah, exactly. But
one little... That's our little aside on the Moon Knight.
Yeah. So, the show goes on. She leaves the training with Bruce Banner. They do go on to kind of talk how Bruce is no longer in the cast, how his arm healed. We saw him at
That's one
the
of the things I did like.
yeah,
They finally solved the mystery. Okay, so
yeah,
why doesn't he have the thing? Because he has that little band that negates his power or something enough to let him heal or something or
right.
whatever.
And we saw him at the end credits of Shang-Chi, where he shows up, he still has the sling on or whatever, and he was human. But apparently he was able to use Jen Walters' blood to now heal himself from that. So I don't know. It's a little confusing. Do you know any more on that than I'm not saying?
Long story short, it kind of felt like and they didn't really say, they got to tease this. They say that they have a unique factor in their blood
Yes.
that lets them basically not get killed by the gamma radiation. They didn't really elaborate what it is, and does anyone else in the family have this? But it's kind of
Right.
interesting that it's not like they said siblings or anything. It's actually just cousins who, there's so many genetic markers and genetic factors that can go into that, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't play a geneticist on TV, but I'm just saying, yeah, if anything that happens there. So I'm kind of curious if they're going to explore that at all.
Right.
But yes, I mean, at this point, that was one of the things I really did like about it. They actually finally touched on something. Okay, thanks for explaining. Now he doesn't have to have a cast forever.
Yeah.
So there
Exactly.
you go.
So again, going towards the end of the episode, she goes back home. She's in court, representing, or actually, she's not defending the guy. She's like with the district attorney, part of the district attorney's office. Um, I don't remember the villain's name, but she's like a social media star.
Titanic?
Yes, yes. So what is it, Titania?
Is it Titana or Titania? I always
I
mess
don't
up the
know,
pronunciation.
one or the other. So she breaks into the courtroom, and then Jen Walters' assistant is like, "Come on, do the thing, hawk up." So she reluctantly hawks up. She saves the day, and that's kind of where the episode ends. We get an after credit scene, which was freaking amazing. She was back at the bar with Bruce. Did you get to see that?
Oh yeah.
Okay, good, good. She was back at
Look,
the
if you know
bar.
anything about Marvel, you know to stay through the credits.
Yes. Yes.
And by the way, before we talk about that real quick, just a little side note. Was it me that thought it was really cool that they played Eve's "Who's That Girl" as the
Yes.
outro?
That was dope.
Kind of
Yeah,
like,
that was
"Who's
dope.
that
Yeah.
girl? Yeah, who's that green girl up there over here?" There.
Oh,
So I just thought
man.
that was kind of
Marvel
interesting.
just
I thought
knows
that was
what they're
very cool.
doing, man. They just know what they're doing. Unlike DC, who seems to be in a shit show right now with all their shows and movies. But we'll talk about that on another podcast. But
Yeah, I don't think I have the heart to
yeah.
crush that right now.
So, so she's at the bar with Bruce, and she's acting like she's drunk, and they're talking about Captain America's sex life, and she's like, I don't remember the conversation exact, but she eventually gets Bruce to say that Captain America is not a virgin, and she's like, wait, he's not a virgin? He's like, you're not drunk? She's like, no. And then she yells out, Captain America, and she was gonna say the F word, but I just cut off right there. I was like, yo, this is great, this is amazing. So moving on.
So of course now
yeah.
that leads to the speculation. Of course,
Who?
okay, who was it that deflowered Steve Rogers? Because
Right.
it kind of feels like Peggy Carter is the obvious choice, but probably not.
Right.
He said he was on a USO tour, so that means it was either like one of the chicks from the show he was traveling around with. I just heard somebody else the other day talk about there is a scene where he meets a fangirl.
Yes.
It's actually the same actress that played Star-Lord's mom from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh wow.
She's the same actress that plays his
Interesting.
mom in that series.
Yeah.
So the big joke that came out, it was a meme that came out, was like, "Oh, what if?" I just want to know if Steve Rogers travels in time and has to tell him, "Hey,
Yeah.
I was at your mom."
That would be great.
Like, oops,
So
awkward.
yeah. So moving on to episode 2. That one is. Let me see here. Let me bring it up. I have the name of that episode on Wikipedia here. It is called Superhuman Law. So I loved this episode. Episode 1 was great, but this one again, it's just all the Easter eggs that we're getting, and then all the characters that they're bringing back. It's freaking amazing. And then just when you think you're not going to see Bruce Banner anymore in this episode, they have a little conversation on the phone at one point. We'll get to where he's at or what he's on at the end of this, but Episode 2, Superhuman Law. How did you feel about it?
I actually think I liked it more than the first episode because of the Easter eggs.
Agreed.
Now, when we're talking about Easter eggs, obviously that can mean anything in the Marvel universe, right? It's so expansive. They've opened up the vault for the most
Yeah.
part, and they're just touching on every little thing, right? Especially, and I'd say this with salt and sugar at the same time because it's a good thing and a bad thing. Ever since they opened up the multiverse,
Yeah.
that kind of opens up the whole bag of worms to say, okay, who else can we introduce, right? Now,
So
as far as this goes into that, just so you know, I just really like this episode in general, but
Yeah.
I know you're going to go somewhere.
Well, I just wanted to say you mentioned the multiverse. One thing that I was reading was that when she's breaking the fourth wall, she's not necessarily talking to us, but could she be talking to the Watcher? Just a thought. I don't know. It's something I read. I'm researching this and reading the plot and synopsis.
I
And
guess my question would be, how would she know about the Watcher, number one, and why would the Watcher care to talk to her?
I don't know. I just wanted to bring it
Just
up
a
to you.
thought.
You're the
I mean-
Sheik of Geek. You know what I mean?
I'm just thinking, you could talk. You could be talking to Tony Stark,
Yeah.
Reed Richards. You could
That's
talk
true.
to Thanos.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So, but who knows?
I mean, that's just the people we know in the universe.
Yeah.
But
Just wanted to
I
throw
digress.
that out there. Yeah. But keep going. You were talking about how you
I
like
was
this
going
one.
to say, I mean, do you want to talk about Easter eggs, or do you want to just talk about the show and how it's went here in general?
Whatever you want to talk about. We'll talk about Easter
I'm going to
eggs.
go to it. You know what? I'm making an executive
Yeah,
decision,
there you
taking over. Here we go, because I got to do this. All right. There is one point where they find out she loses her job. For those
Yes.
who've seen it, right?
Because of a
So
mistrial.
she's job hunting. She's actually on her laptop reading a newspaper. A lot of us read the newspaper, right? On the interwebs,
Yes.
and we would look on our laptop. And did you notice anything about the main cover of that newspaper?
I've
noticed a couple of things. I
Yes,
just wanna see if
go
you
ahead.
know.
There is a couple things that I can't remember what I saw on there, but yes, there is. Go ahead.
Well, let's talk about the obvious one, right? The obvious one, if you're looking at the far right column, it actually says, where was it? I believe it said, "Man with claws,"
Yes.
like in a bar fight. I can't remember the exact wording. Now, for those of us in comic lore that know in
Yeah.
Marvel, hello, who do we know who gets in bar fights who has claws?
Right. Wolverine.
You know, Wolverine, aka Logan, aka James Howlett, aka Patch, aka Little Furball, whatever. But yeah, that's probably the one thing I saw. I actually literally stopped in the middle of watching it, and I said, "Wait a minute, did I just see what I saw?" And I rewinded to make sure I was right. So, did you catch that part?
With the claws.
With no, the notation about the claws.
Yeah, I did see that. Now that was after the fact because again, I listen and read to a lot of podcasts and stuff like that, and they mentioned that, and I went back and checked that out. But I know there was a couple other things on there too that
There was something right underneath that. The one underneath that is making a mention of, for the first time, that at least as far as I'm aware of, that they mention a stone figure reaching out from the ocean.
Oh, from
And when did that happen?
Eternals.
Eternals.
Yes.
Yes. So we had you basically had a outer space being basically stuck in the middle of the ocean that they finally, out of I don't know how many shows and TV shows and movies and things like that have happened since the Eternals, no one's pretty much even mentioned, coincidentally. So I thought that was pretty neat there as well.
Yeah, there was and I'm reading here at the article that I saved earlier. It says as She-Hulk's Walters looks for a job, fans can get a glimpse of her computer screen. There are a number of references that are easily identifiable, as there's a direct reference to Ant-Man, a webpage about Norse mythology pertaining likely to Thor, and a reference to the
very
iconic
top of the read.
yeah,
Yep.
and a reference to the iconic Avengers team. There's even an ad for shoes based on Iron Man, like the Iron Man 3s or something like that.
Other Stark threes.
Yeah,
or
something like that. Yeah. And under that are two interesting links. There is a link titled "Man Fights with Metal Claws in Bar," and what was the other one? And then there's nothing more while this team. And then the second with the Eternals. They mentioned that. So, but One thing.
I'm just thinking, what anybody is anybody going to acknowledge it at this point? And they did, like, kind of indirectly,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's going to be curious to see how they move forward if they do acknowledge it more directly.
So they're acknowledging that, the X-Men or Wolverine is in the MCU now. They're acknowledging the Eternals. Do you think, and here I come with my comic book reading, that's going to be like an X type thing? Avengers versus X-Men versus Eternals. There's a actual storyline going on right now that I'm reading through that it's, all three of them kind of against each other because they're finding out that mutants are essentially... Anyways, we're talking She-Hulk, but it's a possibility. You never know.
I mean, with the advent of Ms. Marvel, we finally got to use for the first time in the MCU the word mutant.
Yeah.
As far as that's concerned, as far as a mutation. So they acknowledge it for the first time. You're also probably going to hear about it in the upcoming, and I hate to bring this up because it's going to lead me down a rabbit hole, but the next Wakanda Forever movie, because you have Namor the Submariner, who in the comics is the very first acknowledged mutant ever in history.
Okay.
So thought like that. So I think, to answer your question a little more directly, yes, they are definitely going to lead to the X-Men. They'd be dumb if they didn't.
Yeah.
It's a franchise tentpole. There's no way they can avoid doing that. It's just a matter of how, because now they got all the rights back from Fox. They can do whatever the heck they want.
Yeah.
Now, what I think my thought that they could possibly do, and if they choose to do this, I don't mind some writer's credit. Just tell me. But what they could do is, of course, since they already had Old Man Logan and all that other jazz, they could actually, with the multiverse situation, have a situation where they see multiple Wolverines through the ages, and kind of like, okay, here it is. This is the person, this time frame, and this time frame, and this time frame, and then all of a sudden settle on who's going to be the new Wolverine, who's going to be whether it be Taron Egerton or whoever else wants to take up the mantle of Wolverine. And I think it's probably going to be something along those lines, kind of like how they did with Professor X. How many Professor X's do you have in the MCU at this point?
Exactly.
Got a couple old one, got the
Some
new
young ones,
younger one. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I'm excited.
It's something along those lines.
I feel like it's promising only because it is Marvel. Don't get me wrong. There are some movies where it's just like, they're meh. But they got this thing down packed, man. They know what they're doing. They know how to bring all these characters together. And I'm looking at you, DC. Like, come on, bro. Come on. You know what I mean?
Here's what it used to be. And again, not to give a history lesson or anything, but it used to be back in the day where DC had the best characters.
Okay.
And best stories, the best writing, and then Marvel always had the best flashier art. And then somewhere in the 2000s and around that area, they kind of got hip to that, and they actually paid attention for once. Go figure. And they kind of like actually flip-flopped a little bit. They changed some writers, they changed some of their artists, kind of jumped back and forth.
Yeah.
So they actually went through not say a comic book renaissance, but it's something basically akin to a newer age of, okay, they're trying to amalgamize everything and make sure everybody has just as good artwork, just as good as writing. So it was like, okay, it's just a matter of how you put everything together.
Yeah, and I've noticed that.
Unfortunately, movies haven't followed that.
that
little formula, unfortunately.
Yeah, I noticed that too with a lot of the writers and colorists and artists on comic books. Like, I'm not only reading Marvel and DC, I'm reading some Image stuff, I'm reading some like Dark Horse comics, and it's like the same writers are on this book, or colorists or artists. So I can see, I guess they're not tied down like they used to be. I don't know how it used to be where you may have a contract with DC or Marvel for so long, but yeah, you can definitely see that they're jumping all over the place.
Definitely. And unfortunately, whereas Marvel from the get-go was intent on making a shared universe, DC kind of just goes in, okay, what works? Okay, cool, we'll leave that in. What doesn't work? Okay, we'll just not acknowledge that. Yeah. Everything just its own thing.
And look at where they're at now.
For a little bit of there, they were trying to combine things in what Justice League type situation, trying to do the Avengers formula, but they didn't follow through with it, unfortunately. So it kind of went by the wayside. They went for one-shots. So here we are.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. But moving on with the second episode. So, your three things you like, three things you dislike, or talk about the Easter eggs, whatever it may be. I don't even know where we were at before we went on a tangent.
You know what? We went down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we started talking about comics, and
You called it.
Yeah, it's gonna happen. Here's something I thought was kind of cool, and the one scene where they call the Hulk.
Yes. Yes. That was gonna be one of mine.
Unfortunately, he can't be around because he's a little busy.
Yeah.
He happens to be on what I assume is the same Sakaar spaceship that was in episode 1 that kind of annoyed me because it just showed up for a brief second and then we never heard about it again. It actually looked very similar to the Grandmaster's pleasure vessel that they escaped Sakaar in, actually. Just purple instead of gold and red. So what I thought was interesting about that is because it looks like he's going back to Sakaar. And aside from the fact that it's kind of just entertaining for a smart Hulk instead of a savage Hulk to go back to that place, if it follows the comic books, that could get really interesting.
Does it have to do with his son?
Yes.
Okay.
It has to do with Scar.
Yes.
Because he was actually there for 2 years in the comic book. So he did have a wife, actually. He met somebody who was a warrior, a female warrior. Yeah, it was amazing. Actually, one of the few in recent history storylines at Hulk that was amazing to me. Read the Planet Hulk and World War Hulk.
I'll definitely have to check those out. Yeah.
I mean, it's just amazing because if it goes back to one of those two storylines, it's going to be just ridiculous. And you'll never look at Meek again the same way. Remember, Meek from Thor Ragnarok, the guy with the bug with the freaking blades for hands.
Yeah.
They kind of use him as comic relief. He wasn't like that in the in the comic.
That's interesting. Yeah, I'll definitely have to check that out.
Kind of scary.
One thing I did read that rumor is that Universal, I think after next year, I think 2024, Universal no longer has the rights to Hawk. So I'm wondering, because that's why Marvel can't really use him in like a larger capacity than what they're already using him now.
Okay.
I'm wondering if they're trying to set that up. If they're setting up this huge Hawk storyline with She-Hulk, so that in 2024 they can come out with or beyond with a Planet Hawk or World War Hawk or whatever it may be, along with Scar and whatever. I don't know, but that'd be dope if Marvel can finally get the rights to Hawk and do a little bit more with him.
It got to be interesting to see what happens if they're going back to Sakaar. Is the Grandmaster still there? And at the end credits of Thor Ragnarok, it didn't look like he was really doing too well there.
Right.
But at the same time, you never know what happens. What I mean? Somebody else could have taken over. He could have turned savage again. I mean, who knows? The Silver Surfer might be there, like he was in Planet Hulk.
Sheesh. Yeah, that could get crazy then, I guess. So.
It could. Again, it's one of those weird things where, like, once you start talking about the possibilities, it just zooms off.
I guess endless. Yeah, I guess they're endless. Yeah, but
and that's the beauty of this genre when you break it down. I mean, in a broader sense, it could literally go anywhere.
Yeah.
The whole thing about comic books is they create starting off with no budget, and they could draw anything they want, and then now the technology is caught up with it.
Yeah.
So we finally got all these crazy big scale movies and big scale productions. So. But I won't gush on that because I'll be here talking forever.
Again, we're going to have to do like about 15 more podcasts and talk about the real MCU comic books and all that. But
yes.
Continuing with episode 2, you were talking about they were on the phone with the Hulk. Another point, so Tim Roth is back as Abomination, and he. Jen Walters is going to represent him. So she gets fired in this episode because she is a liability to the company. She gets rehired by a different law firm.
The same company that was in the court with Titana. That she was going against.
Yes, the one she was going against, correct. So they hire her and they're like, the only way you're going to keep this job is if you, one, you got to be She-Hulk at all times. And two, you have to represent Abomination, who fought the Hulk back in the early 2000s. There's two funny things that happen here. So when
Go ahead. I already know where you're going.
Yeah. So the first one was when they when she was calling, she called Bruce and was like, how do you feel about this? And I have to represent him or I don't have a job, but I won't do it if you don't want me to. And he's like, I was a different person back then, literally. I was like, dude, this is great. The fact that they acknowledged that it wasn't Mark Ruffalo playing the Hulk, but
Edward Norton.
Ed Norton, and then if you didn't know that, it wasn't funny. But the fact that they said literally, fun fact, he added that to that line. That line was just, I was just a different person back then, and Mark Ruffalo added the literally, and they just kept it in because it worked so well. The second thing was when she went to the prison, and she's walking through. She couldn't walk through as a Hawk because no transformations there, or whatever. She went to go, no power. She went to go see Abomination and talk to him. And they're walking down the hallway, and the guard's like saying all these things, and she's like, "You would think, is he going to feed me?" I don't know. She did some fava beans and a nice the Silence of the Lamb quote, and then he cut her off. I probably watched that like 6 times. I just found it so hilarious, and then the way she delivered it, and when she was cut off, I was like, yes, this was that it was amazing. And then Tim Roth himself, Abomination himself, supposedly he's reformed now, and he was like, first of all, namaste. I was like, yo, this is amazing, man. Like,
good old Emil Blonsky himself.
Yes,
in all his glory.
It was great, and
I thought that whole little exchange was really interesting.
Yeah,
especially when you caught on to like the things he was talking about.
His 7 friends.
He was talking about why he wanted to get out, and because through the exchange program and information exchange program in prisons, he has 7 friends that he needs to get a hold of.
Right. So, all right, I have no idea who he may be talking about. At first, I was thinking, all right, Sinister Six, but is it the Sinister Six and he's the 7th?
I don't think so.
So who do you think it is?
I think it's going to be one of 2 different things they're going to do. They're going to either go the way of the Dark Avengers or the Thunderbolts.
Oh, and Thunderbolts is already confirmed. Right?
And it is, and this is what I'm thinking, because if you watch all the other TV shows, the MCU TV shows, you notice they have that. I can't, forgive me for not knowing the name of it, but she's the chick from Seinfeld, Elaine.
Oh yeah.
Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Yes.
She's basically recruiting people in all these end credits.
Right.
She already did it with the new Black Widow.
Yes.
The new Captain America, or U.S. agent, if you want to call it that. I'm thinking she's going to start getting like, Blonsky, the Abomination, a couple other guys together to do either the Dark Avengers or Thunderbolts.
So who are the Dark Avengers? Because I'm not familiar with them. I am familiar with the Thunderbolts, just because of the comics I've been reading lately. But
Dark Avengers is basically a remix of everybody we already know.
Okay.
But they're kind of like the Black Ops version of the regular Avengers. They kind of just stay out of the radar too much.
So they're
out of the
still
public eye as much.
So they're not necessarily like evil or the bad guys. They're just a different
They do
version.
the dirty work.
Okay. They by any means necessary, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay, I gotcha.
That's the quickest, easiest version of when I can explain it, because there's a lot of as everything else in Marvel history, there's a little backstory for every single thing that goes into that. So
yeah. I know. I know for Phase 5, I think they already confirmed that the Thunderbolts are going to be. I don't know if it's a show or a movie, but we'll see. Who knows? But
Thunderbolts is just a unique thing. So that in and of itself, if they could figure out a way to make that work, would be amazing.
Yeah, I just read a comic. It was Devil's Reign, and Wilson Fisk became mayor of New York, and he used the Thunderbolts as like his servants, essentially. Because
basically his cops.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that was very interesting series to read. But I digress. We'll move on. So she again talks to Tim Roth, Abomination, and takes on the job. Anything else about this episode that you feel we should bring to light?
Yeah, like the very end of that episode, when she goes to go tell him the good news. Hey, I'm going to represent you. she was going to tell him. She's telling the guy he got the job. She's taking the job rather. And all of a sudden, the news says, yeah, he's in a little trouble for escaping.
Yeah.
Which actually was a hark back to Shang-Chi.
Yes.
When he went through the portal with Wong. So now he's in trouble for violating his parole for leaving to go to this fight club. That was in Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
Yeah, so
it was actually, this happened basically at the same time as Shang-Chi was happening.
Yeah. So it's that was dope too. I was wondering when that was going to come in. I kind of, that one was kind of easier to guess because, I just recently watched Shang-Chi. You saw Abomination, you saw Wong. They seem to be actually getting along. They were like buddy there. They weren't necessarily, they were fighting for the money.
First name basis.
Yeah, they were fighting for the money. They weren't necessarily fighting to fight each other,
Right.
Then I'm starting to think, all right, so is she going to represent Wong? Because apparently he's rumored to be on the show. Is she going to represent him eventually? When is
technically the Sorcerer Supreme? So I don't know. There's a statute of limitations on a Sorcerer Supreme doing stuff. I don't know.
Who knows? Daredevil. When's he going to show up in this? Because apparently Charlie Cox is in this. We already saw the leaked, his leaked costume he's going to have. So,
he's a lawyer.
And he's a lawyer, exactly. So
that's a gimme. That's a gimme right there, baby. New York lawyer.
And apparently he's going to be on this, for a significant amount of time, more than one episode. So I'm wondering if it's going to be that back and forth where she's representing someone and he's representing somebody else, or back and forth, prosecutor defendant type thing. So I'm super excited for the rest of this show, man. These first 2 episodes got me hooked, unlike any other the others, just besides What If. I binged that, first episode to last episode. So
at the end of the day, I'm just accepting it for what it is, for lack of a better way of saying it, because I went in thinking it's going to be a campy thing. It's going to be not so serious. It's going to be kind of tongue-in-cheek, a lot of the little things they say, which they do. So, and that's the nature of the comic, the nature of the character, and it kind of fits into what they're going. It's a nice little difference to the serious grittiness that Marvel sometimes can be known for.
Right.
Kind of goes hand in hand. It's a nice transition from, okay, here's this girl power thing over from Ms. Marvel thing from a teenager perspective, and coming into her own to a full-grown person who has some experience because they've had superheroes in the family with good old-fashioned the Hulk himself. So she kind of has a little idea, but she never expected herself to be experienced with it. It's fun for what it is, as long as you don't go into it thinking it's going to be a Hulk movie or a Hulk show.
And I agree 100%. It's it is She-Hulk, but I'm enjoying the show just as much, if not more, when she's Jen Walters. It's cool to see her transform into She-Hulk and be the superhero, but I could probably watch a whole show of just Jen Walters. You know what I mean, representing other superheroes or villains or whatever it may be. Because
one little minor thing, and again, this is me being picky because I pay attention to this crap.
Yeah.
All right. The part where she's drinking in the bar.
Yeah, I didn't like
and
that.
all of a sudden she changes back to Jennifer, and then she's drunk.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you weren't drunk a second ago. I'm pretty sure biologically speaking, that thing went through your system already. So what are we talking about here? Well, so I thought that was
I think her thing, she said, different metabolism or something like that. It's different from She-Hulk to Jen Walters. So when she changed to Jen Walters, it hit her like that because she probably had 40 beers. So.
Right, but I'm just thinking that she already drank them, and she was already. The process of breaking down already went through a Hulk.
Yeah,
the She-Hulk, and I'm like, oh, now she's out, and she's like sloppy.
Yeah, I didn't really care for that part either, but it was, again, the show in all, I definitely,
again, that's just me being picky.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it to anyone who hasn't watched it already. If you've watched to this point, you practically watched the show, so just go back and watch it. But
definitely, it's definitely worth your watch.
Definitely worth your watch. So I'm so looking forward to every Thursday now. I haven't felt like that about a show in a long time because and honestly, the Easter eggs make it, takes it from like a 6, 7 out of 10 to 8 or 9 out of 10 for me because, all right, who are we going to see next? Who's she going to defend next? What's the next villain that we all know in the MCU or, superhero that we all know in the MCU? Who's going to be on this show? And that's what I can't wait to see,
And the fact that it's actually based in New York opens a whole
Correct. Yeah.
menagerie of how many characters you can introduce.
Right.
For example, just a little, I don't know if it's easier, a little plug thing that I was talking about. Her dad was talking to her about the legal ramifications of what about Hawkeye? I mean, does he leave those arrows just
Yeah.
lying around? Isn't that dangerous? I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that was
Like,
funny.
is there going to be
Yeah.
some kind of thing coming about that? You know, I just thought that was pretty funny.
How do you feel
I don't know
about
if you
her?
remember.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I don't know if you remember that old show, who her dad is. He actually is an actor from back in the day.
He looked familiar. I don't know who.
Remember that old show where it had what is his name? That the two cousins, Balky
Nah.
Bartakamis.
Nah, I don't remember.
Yeah, Perfect Strangers. That's what it
Okay.
was.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever watched
Where
it.
his cousin was from like some made up country in Europe, and cousin Larry was in Chicago or something like that. He came to live with him. That's cousin Larry.
Oh wow, yeah,
That's
I didn't know
him.
that.
That's the game guy. I can't think of his real actual actor name, but yeah, Perfect Strangers. Look it up. That is actually the guy who plays her dad.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll definitely do that. But how did you feel about her
IMDb
family?
works. Just saying.
Oh, I'm on it right
Look for
now.
IMDb.
I'm on it right now. How do you feel about her family and that whole scene? You know, when she walks in and they're like, "Don't talk about her being unemployed," and her cousin's just like, "Oh, they said talk about her."
They made her
being-"
cousin out.
Yeah.
They set him up to be a douche.
Yeah.
I mean, he kind of like they like him and they think he's cool, but you know, he really doesn't know anything.
But
You
he
know,
just got promoted to manager at Best Buy.
and apparently that's a challenge, from what I
Yeah.
understand. So you know, I wouldn't know. I've never worked there, but from what I understand, that's a very ambitious thing to do if you're actually going to be a lifer.
Yeah.
But who knows?
And-
But he didn't even know how to change the tire. Like, what do I do now after she's holding up the car at the end of the end
It's
credits?
just spinning the wheel.
Like, oh, okay.
But and it was funny too when he's like, nobody really knows what 4K is. I was
Yeah.
just like, yo, this is funny.
Somebody does
Yeah.
somewhere.
But yeah, man.
Who
So,
knows?
any final thoughts?
But yeah, they made. I thought that was a very grounding part of
Yeah.
the show where,
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
okay, she's still a person. They're definitely not going to expect her to walk in all hulked out.
Yeah.
This
Right.
book just cheer for basically at the end of the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, final thoughts on She-Hulk, Attorney at Law.
I'm definitely here. I'm here for it. You know what I mean? Like I said, I went in with just understanding that this is not your typical Hulk show, Hulk movie. It's not a Hulk story. I mean, it happens to be about Jennifer Walters, who happened to be Hulk part-time, if you want to call it that
Yeah,
way, by accident. You know, it's kind of an interesting dynamic where she's just trying to be her. Like I think she even mentioned at one point where, look, I didn't rack up, 6 figures worth of student loan debt, just basically getting my degree and doing all this other stuff, just to be a Hulk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She even said something about at one point about not wanting to go to the Avengers because what do they get paid? Do they have a pension plan? Do they have dental? Do they even get paid? I don't even know. Who knows? Whatever.
Right.
So she's trying to be very grounded. She's trying to be to every person. She's trying to be, okay, I'm strong enough to be on my own as a woman, so I can handle this type situation. So I'm here for it. I mean,
Yeah.
if she breaks the fourth wall, hey, it's not the first time in MCU they've done
Right.
it. So why hold out?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I'm here for it. I'm looking forward to watching I wish I could just stream the whole thing, to be honest. These streaming services had actually got me spoiled a little bit because I could stream everything at once and then move on to the next thing. But definitely looking forward to it every Thursday. Can't wait to see what other cameos we have, all the Easter eggs we're going to get. Again, a Marvel show hasn't gotten me excited like this in a while, so I'm excited for that. Can't wait to see what the heck's going on with Hulk and possibly going back to Sakaar or Scar, if it's his son is around. But yeah, I mean, the little things that we nitpick at, I can see through that stuff because the rest of the show is pretty damn good show for a television show, on Disney Plus. So, but yeah, that's where I'm at with it.
Great.
Once again, Rico, man, Sheik of Geek, I appreciate you coming on, bringing your vast knowledge of the MCU and DC and everything in between. Guys, go on Facebook, look up Geek Warz. That's GeekWarz, like zebra. Join the group, man. Join the conversation. He's always posting a lot of dope stuff on there. I try to post a couple things here and there, but check out his blog. Where can we find your blog?
It's actually on Blogger, so I'll usually post it on Geek Warz.
Okay.
You just click on the link right there. Don't let this guy fool you, because right now he just suckered me in, because all he had to do was say, "Hey, I want to talk comics and movies." Oh, okay, sure. So here I am, actually just coming in here. I'm usually more of the kind of guy who likes to write out things and put things out there that can actually be, not as easily verbalized, I guess. You just put it. I get time to actually think about it while I'm writing it.
Right.
He's the man with the plan who actually is good about it. He loves doing this stuff. If you ever check out the Entertainment Plaza, check it out on YouTube, check it out on every other social media outlet you can. These guys are killing it every week, where you're talking about video games, where you're talking about social media, where you're talking about all the little itty bitty things that all us geeks talk about. Mine's just very direct and says Geek Warz. So his is just about all kind of rangy stuff.
Everything.
Him and Brian and the rest of the crew get together. It's just a show to watch. So always feel free to check him out. Always feel free to check out Geek Warz on Instagram and Facebook. And
that's right.
That's the man, Mo.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate everybody tuning in. Again, you're watching on twitch.tv/The Entertainment Plaza. This will be up on YouTube in about an hour on youtube.com/The Entertainment Plaza and podcast services around the world. Once again, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Mi Gente, MySpace will be there. Check us out on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. We're there as well. So
I'm trying to go back on VHS, but I don't know if I can get the retro technology
I'll make it
to
happen.
make it work.
I'll make it happen.
I'm waiting for Ricky to make it work for
That's
me.
right.
I'm just telling you.
That's right.
So all I got to say is, for all y'all out there, if you like the content, always feel free to subscribe, to join, to like, comment, share it to all your friends. And like I always say here from the Geek Warz universe, so let it be written, so let it be geeked.